Jackson had traveled many light years, carrying nothing but a worn backpack and a few tools. Frontier planets were rough, dusty places where people earned their living by hard work and cleverness. Some were merchants, some were soldiers, and some were like him, engineers who fixed the starships that kept the galaxy connected. He liked these planets, not for their comfort, because they had none, but because everything was simple. Life was about surviving and helping one another. When he landed on the trade world of Draxion 7, he felt the heat of its twin suns on his face. The station was a cluster of low buildings and dusty streets. People hurried between cargo lifts and the small cantina at the center. Signs in alien languages flashed faintly, but Jackson could make out enough to know where to find a cheap inn. He needed rest, and more importantly, he needed to sleep without worrying about anyone trying to steal his few possessions. The inn was small, dark, and smelled of oil and old metal. Behind the counter, a large, stocky alien with 4 arms eyed him suspiciously. "Room?" Jackson asked. 5 credits, the innkeeper grunted. Jackson handed over a small pile of coins. It wasn't much, but he was used to paying for the basics. He had 1 night, maybe 2, before he would have to move on. When he entered his room, he noticed someone sitting quietly in the corner. She was no taller than his chest, with smooth silver skin that shimmered faintly in the dim light. Her large, golden eyes studied him carefully, and her delicate frame seemed almost fragile. She looked around, making sure no one else noticed her presence, and then gave a soft, almost shy nod. "Good evening," she said softly. Her voice was musical, gentle, and carried a calm that eased the tension in Jackson's shoulders. "You work here?" he asked, curious. "Yes," she replied simply. "I am a helper." Jackson tilted his head. "Helper?" She nodded. "I keep the nights calm. Travelers sometimes cannot sleep. I help them rest." Jackson didn't press further. He didn't need explanations. Instead, he unpacked his few belongings and settled near the window. The room was small, but he could see the busy streets below. Even in the darkness, he could sense the life of the planet. People moving, ships lifting off, the distant hum of engines. That night, he noticed something strange. The tiny alien, who introduced herself as Rila, hummed softly while he tried to sleep. It wasn't a song exactly, but a rhythm that seemed to touch some hidden part of his mind. Jackson felt his muscles loosen, his mind grow quiet. He hadn't realized how tense he was. The next morning, he watched as Rila moved quietly among the guests. She brought water and food, always polite, never intrusive. But he noticed the exhaustion in her movements. Even as she smiled, her eyes seemed tired, almost sad. Curiosity gnawed at him. "Are you happy here?" he asked when she brought his breakfast. Rila froze for a moment, then shook her head. "I am not free," she whispered. "I do what is required. The innkeeper keeps track of my work. My debt never ends." Jackson frowned. "Debt? What kind of debt?" She hesitated, then spoke. "I belong to no one, but I am forced to work. The innkeeper says he owns my nights until I repay what was paid for me. It is not much for others, but it is too much for me to finish." Jackson felt a pang of anger. This was not right. No being should live under such conditions, no matter the planet. He studied the small inn, imagining its dark corners and the innkeeper's greedy gaze. He realized that if he simply left, Rila would continue her endless nights. That evening, he made a decision. He would not just pay for her company, he would buy her freedom. The innkeeper laughed when Jackson approached him. "You want to buy her?" "You don't have enough," he said, eyeing Jackson with disbelief. "She's worth much more than that." "I'll pay what I can," Jackson replied firmly. He had some savings from his travels, and he had a few valuable tools. They were his last, but he was willing to risk them for this. Negotiations began. The innkeeper tried to raise the price with every counteroffer, convinced that Jackson would give up, but Jackson was patient. He explained that he was not here to waste time. His offer was final. Hours passed, and the innkeeper's arms grew tired. Finally, with a reluctant nod, he agreed. Rila stood quietly, watching. She had never seen anyone do this before. No one had ever tried to buy her freedom. Most guests treated her as a convenience, a service, or a curiosity, but this human, he had risked everything he owned for her. "Your debt is paid," the innkeeper said, his voice full of mockery. "She is yours, human. Take her." Jackson stepped forward. "I don't want someone to be mine. I want her to be free." Rila's eyes widened. Freedom. She had almost forgotten what it felt like to choose. The weight of years of labor pressed down on her, and for a moment, she couldn't speak. Then she whispered, "Thank you." They left the inn quietly. For the first time, Rila walked beside someone who treated her as a person, not a service. The streets of Draxion 7 seemed brighter, and the hum of engines and voices no longer felt oppressive, but their relief was short-lived. From the shadows, dark figures emerged. They moved swiftly, and Jackson recognized the glint of armor he had seen only in dangerous reports. "Who are they?" he asked, pulling Rila behind a crate. They are hunters," she whispered, fear creeping into her voice. "I ran from them once. I thought I was safe, but they always find me." Jackson's heart pounded. He had not expected this. He had prepared to buy her freedom, not to fight off armed pursuers. But he could not leave her to them. Not now. Not ever. He grabbed a nearby crate and threw it toward the approaching figures. The noise bought them a few seconds. Rila led the way, small and quick, her agility allowing her to slip through narrow paths between buildings. Jackson followed, using his strength and knowledge of machinery to block their path whenever possible. They ran through the dusty streets, over fallen signs and broken cargo lifts. The twin suns of Draxion 7 had set, leaving the planet bathed in orange twilight. Shadows stretched long, and the hunter's armor reflected faintly in the dim light. "Where do we go?" Jackson asked. "There is an old transport depot," Rila said. "It is abandoned. We can hide there." They reached the depot, its walls covered in rust and faded paint. Inside, the air smelled of oil and dust. Rila moved to a corner, and Jackson followed, keeping his eyes on the entrance. "They will come," she said softly. "They always come, but you bought my debt. You did not just pay for my nights. You gave me something no one ever gave. You gave me a choice." Jackson looked at her. "I didn't buy you to own you. I bought you to give you your life back." Rila's small hand touched his arm. It was light, almost fragile, but full of warmth. "Then, I choose to trust you." The sounds of the hunter's approach echoed outside. Jackson and Rila prepared themselves. He had no weapons except what he could find in the depot, and she had her speed and small size. But together they felt a strange strength, something beyond technology or brute force, something that humans always carried: courage. Jackson took a deep breath. "We fight together," he said. Rila nodded, her eyes glowing faintly with a mix of fear and determination. The first of the hunters entered the depot, their boots clanging on the metal floor. Jackson grabbed a loose pipe and swung it with precision, hitting one in the chest. Rila darted between the others, small and quick, her movements confusing them. The hunters were strong, but unprepared for someone who fought for another, not just themselves. Hours seemed to pass in moments. Crates toppled, sparks flew from broken machinery, and the dust in the air made every movement tense. But Jackson and Rila kept moving, kept fighting, kept surviving. Finally, the hunters retreated, wounded and frustrated. They would return. But for now, the depot was quiet. Jackson and Rila stood together, breathing heavily, battered but alive. Rila looked at him, a faint smile on her lips. "I never thought I would feel safe," she said. "Not until now." Jackson put a hand on her shoulder. "We're not done yet. But tonight you are free, and we will find a way to keep it that way." Outside, the twin moons rose, casting silver light across the depot. For the first time, Rila could see the stars not as a prison, but as a sky full of possibilities. And beside her, a human stood, not as a master, not as a stranger, but as someone who had chosen to fight for her. The galaxy was wide and dangerous, but for the first time, both of them felt hope. And that hope was stronger than any fear. The night on Draxion 7 was quiet, but Jackson and Rila knew it would not stay that way for long. The hunters had retreated, but their presence lingered like a shadow. They could return at any moment, and Jackson could not allow Rila to fall back into the chains of debt, fear, and ownership. She had earned her freedom, and he had promised to protect it. Rila paced the dusty floor of the abandoned depot, her small form tense and restless. "They will not give up," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "They always find me. They will come again stronger." Jackson nodded, understanding her fear. "Then we need a plan. We can't just keep running blindly. We need to use our heads, not just our strength." Rila stopped and looked at him. Her golden eyes glimmered in the dim light. "I have an idea, but it is dangerous. I have never done it fully. I can interfere with their machines, but I have always held back because it is risky. I might hurt myself." Jackson studied her carefully. "If it can help us survive, we'll take the risk together. I won't let them take you back." Rila hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Then we try." The next morning, the twin suns rose over the desert planet, casting long shadows across the abandoned depot. Jackson scavenged parts from old machinery, creating simple traps and alarms. Rila focused on learning to control the unique ability her species possessed, a resonance that could disrupt electronic devices. She had always hidden it, fearing punishment if she used it, but now it was their only chance. By midday, they were ready. Jackson had set up a series of traps that would slow the hunters, while Rila practiced sending small pulses from her hands and chest. Each pulse disrupted a nearby device. Broken lights flickered. Old transport vehicles coughed and sputtered. Her confidence grew, and with it, Jackson's hope. Late in the afternoon, the hunters returned. This time, they moved with more precision, their armor glinting menacingly in the sunlight. They had clearly studied the area and knew the depot well. Jackson motioned for Rila to stay behind a crate. "Wait for my signal," he whispered. The hunters stepped inside, their boots clanging loudly. One of them pointed, clearly seeing the traps, but it was too late. A chain of mechanical devices toppled, creating noise and confusion. Rila took a deep breath, focusing her energy. Her small hands glowed faintly as a pulse of resonance shot out. The hunters' trackers beeped frantically, and then went silent. One armored suit sparked and hissed, leaving its wearer stunned. Jackson seized the moment. He charged, using his pipe and improvised weapons to strike at the hunters. Rila darted between them. Small and quick, using her size and agility to distract and confuse. Together they became an unpredictable force, moving as one. Despite their success, Jackson knew this was only temporary. The hunters would regroup. They could not stay on Draxion 7 forever. "We have to leave," he said, breathing heavily. "There is a transport station 2 valleys east. If we can reach it, we can get off this planet." Rila nodded, though her small form was trembling. "I can help. I can disable their ships once we reach them." but we must move carefully." They set off, traveling across the desert valleys. The suns beat down on them, but Rila's resilience was remarkable. She leaped across crevices, climbed rocky ridges, and guided Jackson along the safest paths. He carried his backpack and a few essential tools, but he mostly relied on his wits, knowledge of terrain, and quick thinking. As they approached the transport station, they saw it was partially abandoned. Old freighters and cargo vessels sat idle, rusting under the sun. This was their chance, but the hunters had anticipated this move. A patrol waited near the landing pads. Rila took a deep breath. "It is now or never," she whispered. She extended her hands, concentrating. A pulse of energy emanated from her, invisible but powerful. Sensors on the patrol's armor and weapons overloaded. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the hunters were thrown into chaos. Jackson rushed forward, disarming one and knocking another to the ground. Rila moved quickly, slipping between them, using her small size to avoid attacks. Within minutes, the patrol was incapacitated. The way to the freighter was clear. Jackson reached the ship controls and checked the navigation panel. Most systems were intact, but some needed manual adjustments. Rila hovered near him, her hands still glowing faintly from the last pulse. "I can help with the engines," she said. "I can interface with their systems. They are not designed for my kind, but I can adapt." Together, they worked. Jackson managed the mechanical systems while Rila focused on the electronics. The engines roared to life, shaking the freighter slightly as it prepared to lift off. Outside, the hunters regrouped, but their weapons were useless now. As the freighter rose, Rila finally spoke. "I was afraid that even if you bought my debt, I would never be free, that someone else would always claim me." Jackson looked at her. "I never bought you to own you. I bought you to give you the choice no one else had given. Freedom is something you earn, not something you are sold, and you earned it." Rila's eyes shone with unshed tears. "Then, I choose to stay with you. Not because I must, but because I want to. I want to see where we can go together." Jackson smiled faintly. "Then let's see the galaxy." The freighter left the atmosphere of Draxion 7, rising above the desert world. The twin suns glinted off the metal hull as they entered space. For the first time in many years, Rila could breathe without fear, move without restriction, and think without chains. In the quiet of the freighter, they began to talk, learning about each other. Rila told Jackson stories of her home planet, of forests that glowed under twin moons, and of her people who were strong, clever, and kind. She told him how she had survived the hunters before, moving from world to world, always hiding, never belonging. Jackson shared his life as a starship engineer, repairing ships and helping travelers across the galaxy. He told her about the planets he had visited, the people he had met, and the small acts of kindness that had kept him moving through difficult times. As they shared stories, they also began to plan. They needed a new life, one far from hunters, debt, and oppression. Rila suggested planets with strong human and alien communities where refugees and travelers could blend in and start fresh. Jackson considered her ideas carefully. He had spent most of his life working alone, but now he realized that partnership, trust, respect, and loyalty was a strength greater than any tool or weapon. Days passed in hyperspace. Rila grew stronger, more confident, and began exploring her abilities fully. She discovered that her resonance could do more than disrupt machines. It could also enhance certain devices, helping the freighter run more efficiently. Jackson marveled at her skill, realizing that she had not been weak or helpless, only held back by fear and circumstance. One evening, as they floated among the stars, Rila looked out the viewport. "I never imagined freedom could feel like this," she said softly. "I thought I would always be running, always hiding, But now I feel alive. Jackson joined her, placing a hand on the metal railing. You are alive, and you have a choice in every moment. That is something no one can take from you. Ryla turned to him, her golden eyes shining. Then thank you, human, not for paying my debt, but for seeing me, for believing I could choose my life. Jackson smiled. You didn't need me to believe. You needed someone to give you the chance, and you took it. That is the real strength. They spent the next few weeks exploring nearby systems, taking odd jobs to earn credits, repairing freighters, and helping communities in need. Everywhere they went, Rila's small form was a wonder to locals, but her confidence and intelligence made her respected. Jackson's engineering skills were invaluable, but it was his heart, his willingness to fight for another, that earned them the trust of those they met. Through every challenge, from hostile pirates to malfunctioning ships, the two of them learned to rely on one another. Rila had freedom, but she also had purpose. Jackson had his work, but he also had friendship and trust. Together, they became a team that no one could underestimate. Finally, after months of travel, they returned to a quiet planet far from the hunters. Rila had grown stronger, her resonance under full control. Jackson had repaired and upgraded a freighter, making it capable of long journeys without fear of pursuit. They stood together, looking at the horizon. Rila spoke first. I am free now, but more than that, I am happy. I choose to stay with you, not because I have to, not because anyone paid for me, but because I want to. Jackson nodded, understanding fully. And I choose to stay with you, not because you need protection, but because you make life better, and together we are stronger than alone. The twin suns set, casting long shadows across the planet. Above, the stars began to shine, endless and full of promise. For the first time, Rila felt truly at home, and Jackson felt he had found a partner in a universe that was vast, dangerous, and full of possibilities. They had faced hunters, fought against impossible odds, and discovered the power of trust and courage. The galaxy was wide, full of unknown worlds and challenges, but they would face it together. Freedom had been bought, but loyalty, trust, and friendship had been earned. And that was something no one could ever take away. For the first time in many years, both human and alien could breathe deeply, knowing that their lives were theirs to shape, and that together they could face anything. The galaxy stretched before them, endless and bright. And in that vastness, they had found something rare: hope, trust, and a friendship that would last a lifetime.